Okay, we're up to Berachos Daf Chaf Amin Aleph. We're 4 lines from the top. Amalei Rapapal Abaya. Maishna Rishonim, the earlier generations, this Rachash Nisa, that a nest would occur for them. Maishna Anon, we, Lemis Rachel Nisa, that a nest is not a cup for us. They're speaking with Prat, asking for rain. If it's because they're more learned than us, it's not true. Because Bishan, the Rabbi Yehuda, Kule Tenuye ben Zikin Have, they were all learned in the Zikin. The Yehuda is of the opinion that whoever wants to be a chassid should learn the Zikin. So he is very macro in this generation that everyone knows say in the Zikin, one of the 6 Shida Mishnah is the Zikin. But none, however, us in our generation, Kamasin and Shisa Shida, we learn all 6 Sidar, not just the Zikin. The Chiyumate Rabbi Yehuda B'Oktzin. Rabbi Yehuda would get to Masechta Uktzin, which deals with things of Tumah V'Taira regarding the oikets, the stem going into a fruit. Aisha shekedeshes yerek b'kedera, an isha that would go ahead and pickle a yerek in a vegetable in a kedera. But imrila zaysim shekivshan b'terfeyim toirid, zaysim that are pickled with their leaves are tohirim. The leaves lose their shame of a yad. According to Rashi, the yad has the capacity to go ahead and bring tumah in and out from the pre, or the yerek. So Ami Hayes to Rabbi Yehuda, Kachazin Hacha. And Rabbi Yehuda said, Abayis to Rabbi Shmuel Chazin Hacha. I see so much machloikas in this that they were so unsure about the clarity of Masech Doksin. But none, however, our generation says, Papa to Abaya. We have 13 yeshivas that are experts in Uktzin. Places tells us Yesh Mefarshim Tlisi yeshivas Yesh Beno Shebekian with place a Lav Dafka 13 Elolashin Hirgul B'Gemara K'may Placer. So the Gemara uses the term 13 common. And Gemara is not superstitious. He uses the word 13 commonly. So therefore, in other words, they were not so clear in Uktzin. We're clear in Uktzin. So regarding Mishnayos, we learn all 6. They learn in the Zakim, Yehuda. We learn all 6. Uktzin, they were at Kashas on. We have a clarity in Uktzin. We have so many yeshivas. However, V'ilu Rabbi Yehuda, ki have Sholav Chad Misane. Rabbi Yehuda, when he would take off one of his shoes to go down and daven, Asi Mitra, rain would come right away. V'anon komet samina nafshan mitzavach tzav chinon. But less the mishkachas fun, and we, such learned people, we daven, we cry out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Skarnish Gehelf, and we don't get any rain. So what's the difference between the generation of Rabbi Yehuda and our generation? So Amalei, so Abai told her Papa, Kamoy Habe Komasri Nafshayu Akdushas Hashem. Earlier generations, they were Moise Nefesh Akdushas Hashem, Anole Masrina Nafshayu Akdushas Hashem. But we are not Moise Nefesh on Akdushas Hashem. The older generations, they cared very much for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, and we don't care as much. For example, Kihoda Ravada Barava, like I guess this is the older generation at the time of Rabbi Yehuda, Chazia, like he kutis, he saw this woman, there was a kusis, again, kusis it means like an akum, the Havi Visha Karbalta Bishuka, she was wearing a Karbalta Bishuk, some type of beged. The Orach on the side says the Messiah shot some red beged. It seems that the red was a sign of lack of tznius, or some pitzos, the Orach says. And some of the Rashi Yisrael, who he and Rav Ada Barava thought that this woman in the red garment was a Bas Yisrael. So come Kari Mane, went and ripped it. Igloi Milsa the Kusasi. And Shamu Baraba Meyazuz. So you see, I guess he was Moise Nefesh, like the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, cares so much about what? About pritzes. Anyway, the bottom line is he found out that he was a Goyata, and therefore he ended up having to pay Shamu Baraba Meyazuz a large sum of money, 400 zuz, for the nesek that he had delivered to this woman. Amalei. So Ada Rabbi said to him, Mash Mech, what's your name? Amalei, she told him, Masan, my name is Masan. Amalei, Masan, Arba Meyazuz is Shabya. So there's 2 pshatim over here. Masan is lashon of Masayim, or Masan lashon of waiting. Had I waited and clarified whether you were a yid or a guy, I would have saved myself a lot of money. But the bottom line is we see the one Moise Nefesh. Rav Gidl Havi Rogel Havi Koazol B'Yosef Ashari Tefillah. Rav Gidl, he was accustomed to go ahead and sitting by the shar of the tefillah. He'd be accustomed to go ahead, by the woman would go to the mikvah, he would sit there. And Amalahu Hachi Tavila, Hachi Tavila. And we teach them the halachas at tefillah. Here's the way you table. Here's the way you table. Similar Rabbanon, like Mustafi Mar, Yetz Sahara. You're not worried about the Yetz Sahara. So Amalahu, he told him, The mayim ba'apoy ki kakoy the chivri. There's in my eyes, they're like a white duck. They're like a white duck. So there's a sefer called the Magid Talumas. It's a Bnei Yisascha. The Bnei Yisascha. Bnei Yisascha says a fascinating shot over here. It says the following: the reason why we're trying to figure out why did Rav Gidl say that you compare to what a white duck, white dafka, a duck. And he says it's fascinating shot. He says like this, that the a person is not a mizana, does not do an immoral act unless a ruach shtus enters him. And the Gemara that later on, Daf Zayin, says if someone sees a duck in his dream, it's sapel chachma, he can go ahead and anticipate that he's going to have chachma. And therefore, very geshmak over here. You're telling me, aren't you worried about what the Yetzer Hara? If they're like a white duck to you, where you would sapel a chachma, and therefore you don't have to worry about the ruach shtus, then mainly you don't have to worry about any immoral act. So that was the sefer Magid Taluma. That's the sefer Magid Taluma. Continues the Gemara. Another ma'aser with a person who would wait. Rabbi Yochanan, he was accustomed to sitting by the Shari Tefillah. Amma, he said, Kisolka B'nai Yisrael, when the B'nai Yisrael would go to the mikvah, the Asyan, the Tefillah, and they'd come up from the Tefillah, Mistalkin B, they would look at me, and Zara the Shapiri Kavase, and they'd have children that are beautiful like me. We had the Gemara earlier between Rav Yochanan went to visit Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar was sitting in a dark room, and then it says that he drew his hand and it lit up the room, and he had a conversation. Why are you crying? And he said, "I'm crying because the beauty of one like you is going to be in the kever." And for that, Rabbi Yochanan also cried. And we spoke out of Marsha then that the beauty of you. He was from the Shapir di Yerushalayim. He was the last survivors of the beauty of Yerushalayim. So over here, he wanted that to continue, the beauty of Yerushalayim. You see, Rabbi Yochanan cared very much, not for his own beauty, but the beauty of Yerushalayim, that the woman would see him and they were carrying that beauty. So they said to him, they said to Rabbi Yochanan, you're not worried about an ayin hara? They didn't ask him about the Yetzer Hara. They asked him about ayin hara. We'll deal with that in a second. I'm from the children of Yosef. The ayin hara is not shown on me. Ben Paras Yosef and Paras Ali Oyin. Rabbi Abba al Tikre Ali Ayin to the eye, Ela Ale Oyin above the eye. Ela Oile, not Ale to the eye, Ela Oile Ayin above the eye, above the evil eye, above the Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yechanina, Amai Mechacha, V'yidgu l'roiv b'kerev haaretz, and we said Yaakov Avinu gave the bracha to Yosef that he should increase the roiv b'kerev haaretz. Ma dong shebayom mayim mechasim aleihem bein ayin hara sholat this behem. Just like dong shebayom, an ayin hara is not sholat on them. Am zarish Yosef ain ayin hara sholat this behem. The ayin hara can't be sholat over them. By saying ayin shlei rutz the laws and mishein aloi, the ayin did not want to have hana from that didn't belong to him. Yosef avoided the Ashes Potiphar, that Muslim did not belong to him. Ain ayin hara sholat this part. The ayin hara would not be sholat over him. So different reasons for ayin hara. There's different reasons given for ayin hara. Is ayin hara a spiritual thing or a physical thing? I heard a shir once from Rabbi Melech Leibowitz. He spoke about it being a physical thing. He spoke about they did studies in Russia. They went ahead and they put a person in a cage, a prisoner, and they put food within a proximity that he could see it, but he couldn't feel it. And they checked it after there were such toxins in the food. Smashmit's a physical thing. Conversely, it's also smashmit's ayin hara is that that in Shemayim, if people are looking at you, in Shemayim they'll also look at you. So they may open the pettek and they open up your notebook in Shemayim, and that would cause a need against you that normally Kabiyachal they wouldn't look at. So it's constant whether it's a spiritual thing or it's a physical thing. That might be again. I'm just suggesting this. I don't know if it's true. That might be the nafkaminas between the different terutzim. According to the teretz that's above the eye, that ali ayin means any eye. No matter what, above even in Shemayim above that eye, that they're not going to go ahead and look at you. But if it's a physical thing, then the yidgul roiv b'kerev haaretz. It's interesting because fish in water you could see. So if it's an Indian of seeing, they could see Yosef. If it's an Indian of physicality, then there's the barrier of the water. The water would be a barrier between the eye and the fish. So that would be similar to what the barrier between a person and the evil eye. So Ken Zayin, based upon the Gemara's two terutzim, that would go ahead and be explained whether it's a spiritual heebie-jeebie thing based upon the Pascali Ayin, or it's a physical thing, the Yud Gularoy, the Kerev Aretz. That might be an interesting way to explain it. Okay, next Mishnah is packed. The Yisraelis Mishnah. To understand, we should be magdim the concept of mitzvahs esay shezman grama. We know that there are mitzvahs that are contingent upon time. Mainly, we think about the Mayadim. The Mayadim, you have the Mayadim that Pesach, Shuis, Sukkis, Mayadim. But there are other mitzvahs that are mitzvahs esay shezman grama. Going ahead wearing tzitzis. Laila is Lavzman tzitzisu. Tzitzis is contingent of a time. Women do wear tzitzis. Tefillin. Women don't wear tefillin because either Shabbos is not zman tefillin or Laila is not zman tefillin. You can't watch them well. Tefillah will have a machlokes rishonim what tefillah is, but the bottom line is there's things that mitzvah sheshes grama. What's the source on mitzvah sheshes as man grama? The Gemara tells us in Kedushin that we make a hekesh between tefillin and Talmud Torah. That Talmud Torah, tefillin is a mitzvah sheshes man grama, and it's hookish to the Talmud Torah. Just like Talmud Torah, mitzvah sheshes man grama, women are what are mitzvah man grama hookish kol Torah lo tefillin. My tefillin mitzvah sheshes man grama v'nashim b'turais, right? I've called mitzvahs essay sheshes man grama v'nashim b'turais. Women are part of Talmud Torah, and therefore tefillin is hookish Torah. So we ascertain since women are part from Torah, and tefillin is hookish Torah. So we've established that tefillin is part of Mamela tefillin, which is a mitzvah sheshes man grama. Women are part of from all these mitzvahs. So let's see it inside. We'll see some Rashi in some places. Noshim va'avodim v'ketanim. Noshim, women avodim. Again, women are avodim amuchiyah mitzvahs kiisha. We have a gezer shava lo meisha. It says by isha by gerishim the chasav law sefer krishis. It says by avodim b'chupsa le'nitain law. So law that all avodim are mitzvah in mitzvahs kiisha. So an eved is certainly a sug above a guy. We make brachos every day. Shloisani guy, shloisani aved, shloisani isha. You see that one an eved is above a guy. Not a guy because that's on bracha. Now, so Nashim Apata, Bavadim, Fikatanim, and this is Machlekes Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi is Kan Shegila Chinuch, is Pata from Kriyashma, and Tosfos says that lab is the Kan Shegila Chinuch, Beturmi Kriyashma. Says Rashi, Shemitzas Eshesh is man grama, the Kaimel and the Kedushin, the Nashim Beturas Midaraisa, with Tefillah Nami Mitzas Eshesh man grama, the Sabi Laila Shabbos Lazman Tefillah, at Shabbos and Laila and Shabbos Lazman Tefillah. Ketanim is afil konshigil chinuch the tiwa love l'chantem kriyashma yisheina matzi tamid kishemigiyas my kriyashma is not found at that time, even though the mitzvah chinuch is not found at that time. Amid beis umenat tefillin and nashim ketanim v'avodim apata from tefillin the chayavim b'tefila they be chayav in shmona esrei with a mezuzah the mitzvah mezuzah with berachos hamazon. Says Rashi umenat tefillin yishum the stam cotton. Stomach cotton, I guess, who is not able to watch his body, that he shouldn't flatulate, he shouldn't expel gas in them, and therefore there's an Indian of Kedusha, and therefore he's potter from Tefillin. The Chayavim, however, betfila. The Tefila Rachmehi, Tefila is Bakashais, it's Rachmim, Umid Rabbanon it's Rabbanon, the Tiknua Afle Noshim, and they were metaknet even for Noshim. So therefore, by tefillah, which is the Rabbanon, women are mechuyev. Greg places with tefillah pshit, says the Gemara, kriyashma pshita mitzvah seshes man gramahu. So it's pasha. What are you telling me that nashim k'tam v'badam pata? Mitzvah seshes man gramahu nashim tuas. But madatim hoil v'isbu malchus shemayim. I would think since kriyashma is malchus shemayim, kamash malon that is still pata. It's enough for them to say one pasuk. They don't have to go ahead and say Kriya Shema. They can mention Al Shemaya. Umenat tefillin pshita ma'adutema hoil v'ishkas the mezuzah. Since it's mukish the mezuzah, kamash malon. So you would think that since women are mechuyev mezuzah, right? Ksafim mezuzah al desecha Ukshat Mesa Yidecha, V'Yudav Esmenecha, Tzadam Luz B'Tzah Shrecha. We have a hex between tefillin and mezuzah, just like in Mechuyev mezuzah, you chayav tefillin, Kamash Modanan. Now, what about tefillah? V'chayav mitefillah, the rachmin nenu, it's rachmanis. So why shouldn't they be chayav? So pashit, somehow the tema hoil ksiv bay. It says erev abayik with sarayim. It says in tefillin in tilim in the morning and afternoon with sarayim kimitzvah zeshes man grama Kamash Molan that it's not. Okay, so let's see a little bit about this. What does Rashi say? Hachi garsinon, the tefillah the rachminenu, legoris pshita. We're not goris pshita, the lav the raisahu. It's not the raisa. So since it's not the raisa, it's only the rabbanon, and therefore they don't say pshita. So if it's the rabbanon, why you chayiv? So they say because it's rachmi. It says Taisvis, but tefillah pshita, keeping the customary it's asicha the ahema and ammonia commits magramu kamash mon rachmininu. Rashi like goris lay. Rashi is not goris, right? This that pshita. Straight tefillah the rabbanon. He my mitzvah shayach pei. Since the rabbanon, it's not shayach mitzvah say shazman grama, right? It's not shayach mitzvah say shazman grama. There's a very interesting pshat over here that uvatamadav shim the rabbanon ein es hapatur shazman grama yeshleim, right? Maybe you could say that the rabbanon women are mechuyev in olay sases, and since it's the rabbanon, so the rabbanon has the backing of the lav of leisasser. So I might think that women are therefore women would be chayiv, so you can't say pshita, right? The Yeshlema kivin the rabbanon yesh as halav shel loisaseh. Noshim etzav called lavim. Women are mitzuvin all lavim, so it says leisasser, and memela l'chayra you don't say pshita because it's pashit. So Rashi says that according to this, you're not goyris pshita. Hal the Rabbanon, nonetheless, halos the Rabbanon, the Nashim Peturais, and Nashim still part, even though it's the Rabbanon. May high time with the mitzvah says man grama. Who can I mean in Sukkah? Misha ever Isha, I cotton, Makranisa, anyone who has ever Isha, they could read for him. Aina Achrayim can answer. If they're reading for him, he can answer. Mashay Moimim. The Eina Shameya Patam Kriyasan, Kimashem Peturim. Okay, anyway, Machala Pakas. We have Rashi Shita. Rashi Shita is that one that it's that tefillah is the Rabbanan. So we have the famous Shita of the Rambam. Famous Shita of the Rambam. This is the Rambam in the Yad Chazaka Hilchas Tefillah Perik Rishon, right? This is mitzvah asay lispalel. It's a mitzvah asay to daven b'chol yoyim shneimar ve'avaratem es Hashem Elokechem. You should serve Hashem. The Rambam learns mifnei Shmua lamdu she'avoida. This avoida is not kavanis. Zuhi tefillah. That's tefillah. And we saw earlier that we spoke out that the Kahanim would daven. They weren't able to daven the whole thing. They would have an abridged version. But you see, even the Zman of the Beis Hamikdash, they brought Kabbanos and they did Avodah, they still would daven. So Raya l'chayr to the sheet is a Rambam that tefillah is the Raisa. Shenemar u'avdoi b'chol avchem amru chachamim ezehi avodah shebelev. Right, what's considered avodah that in your mind? Zu tefillah. The amount of times you daven is not minat Torah. To daven is minat Torah, but the amount of tefillah is not. The mishnah tefillah hazois minat Torah. And the lashon of tefillah is not minat Torah. But tefillah is man kavua minat Torah knows there's man kavua. Lefikach lashon v'abodim chayav mitfillah. V'shehei mitzvah esei shleis man grama. It's a mitzvah shleis man grama because daven at any time. Alachiyav mitzvah zu kachu. Shei adam mischainein. A person should find gracious in the spalo b'chol yoyim u'magid shvachish l'kadosh baruch hu, speak about praise Hashem. The achakach shoyel tzrochav, then ask his praise, ask his needs. Should tzarich lem v'akoshu v'atchina v'achakach noisin shvach v'ida. That's the matbeya that we have. We have the first three brachas of praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The middle 12 brachas. We have 13 now of bakoshais, and the final three brachas of thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Each person according to his kayach. This is the shittas Rambam of what tefillah is. So how shot the Rambam in this Gemara over here, right? Well, the shittas Rambam in Gors in the Gemara of Chayav Mitfillah the Rachminina. We're not goyris like Rashi. Rashi says not goyris pshita. He says you're not goyris all Gemara. She'ain tzrichim with tamseh. You don't need the reason that's Rachmanis. Rachmanis would be if it's the Rabbanan. However, Shaharizum mitzvah esrei shelo zman grama. It's in mitzvah esrei shelo zman grama. Any mitzvah esrei shelo zman grama, women are chayivin. It's Tzarchiyim and Gorsim Mao the Tame Ahoil because of Erev with Sarayim. Tzarchiyim. What about the first part? Erev with Sarayim. That's mashma that it's a mitzvah that it's a mitzvah. I would think it's a mitzvah esrei zman grama, right? Shari Kama Dubar al Achiv the Raisa of Tzarchiyim. Magen Avram Kosav Shalashit Sarambam Noshem Ein Chayoves Elab Tefila Achas. They only bechayev one tefillah. So it's Shitas of Rambam in Shulchan Aruch. It's brought down regarding Kriya Shema. Noshem Avadim Turim the Kriya Shema. Arachaim Simin Ayin Sif Aleph. Mitnei Shehi Mitzvah Zeshe says Grama. They be put in Kriya Shema. However, by Nochem Hu Lamdam, it's important to teach the women. She Kabu Olei Vol Nachar Shemayim. Uva Ramah, as I mentioned earlier, V'yikul Lepachis Pasuk Rishon. Like the Ramah should say one pasuk. Mr. Brewer says the Das of the Bach. The Chayof Medina Kabul Malchus Shemayim Pasuk Rishon. People go ahead and disagree. Now I'm about Chayv, as I told you that we're going to discuss. Just to go back in time, I missed a Bach that went ahead and explained the difference between Reb Gidl and Reb Yochanan. Okay, right? Reb Gidl says they said, "Aren't you worried about the Yetzer Hara?" What did Reb Yochanan say? Yes, then aren't you worried about Ayin Hara? So the Bach over there says something very interesting. That in fact, Rav Gidl was teaching them. He had to look at them because he had to teach them Hilchos Tefillah. If you're looking at women, you have to worry about the Yetzer Hara. Rabbi Yochanan, on the other hand, wasn't looking at them. They were looking at him. In fact, the Gemara tells us, the Gemara in Baba Kama, the end of Baba Kama tells us that Rabbi Yochanan could not see. His eyelids were so heavy, he couldn't see. He lifted up his eyelids, sort of Kahana, he had split lip. Okay, the whole Gemara at the end there, Rav Kahana was nifty, brought it back to life. He thought he was smirking at him. But the bottom line is that he was not looking at them, they were looking at him. So they didn't ask him, why are you worried about the Yetzer Hara? They asked him, aren't you worried about Ayin Hara? That people look at you and say you're so beautiful. So it's beautiful interpretation, the Chiluk of Gidl, they asked, aren't you worried about the Yetzer Hara? And Rabbi Yochanan, they asked, are you worried about what? The Ayin Hara. Very, very big difference. Sorry, I didn't say it in line. That's it. Okay, let's. Says the Gemara, I told Berachos with mezuzah, women are mechuyev mezuzah. Says in a pshita the mechuyev mezuzah. So now the time of fail the iskish le Talmud Torah. I would think that why, as we saw that mezuzah is mukish to Talmud Torah, kamash malan. Where do you see the hekish to Talmud Torah? The chsiv limadatam v'sam esbenechem v'sam achlei chasaftem. So it says you should teach Torah, and then it says chasaftem v'zois. So you'd see that what Talmud Torah nashim p'turais, even though it's ein zman grama. Rachman apatri the chsiv. Espenechem, Martum Espenechem, Veleben Esechem. That's the guys. You're supposed to learn all the time. Kisaba Balayla. So if Torah is not a mitzvah, it's not a mitzvah. It's an groma. Why you wouldn't put them from Talmud Torah? So the Gemara tells us that it says, "Martum Espenechem, Benechem Veleben Esechem." I think it's the Gemara in the Dara, if I remember correctly. With Berachos Hamazon, women are mechuyev in Berachos Hamazon pshita. Samad tema hayil ksiv. The pasuk says. The pasuk says, "Vayom Moshe b'seis Hashem lechem ba'erev baso lechol v'lechem ba'boikel isbayah." So it says that what it says lashon of in the morning and in the evening. It says in the lashon mat in the morning and in the evening. So I would think that what since it says the morning and the evening, I would say that what that they are with mitzvah shesan grama kamash malon that what that it's not kamash malon. That it's not. Amarav Ada bar Ava Noshim Chayovas b'Kiddush Hayoim. Women are mechuyev in Kiddush. Devar Torah midaraisa. My mitzvah shesman groma. Shabbos is once a week. Says Rabbi mitzvah shesman Noshim Turos. Amarabaya midrabanan. Women are mechuyev what in Kiddush derabanan. Amalei Rava what Devar Torah kamar. He said that what Rabbi said Noshim Chayovas Kiddush Devar Torah, not derabanan. But oid kol mitzvah says asay nechayvu midrabanan. If that's the case, every mitzvah say even shleias man gramish mechayev derabanan. In other words, if you tell me that what that the woman are chayev deraisa, you can tell me it's derabanan. So really, it comes out that what that every mitzvah says man gramish similar to kiddush women should mechayev derabanan. We know they're not. So and in addition, it said the Torah. Ela amarava amakra. What's the kiddush? The zach v'shama kol sheyeshne b'shmira yeshne b'schira. Anyone who's in the ballpark of watching Shabbos, keeping Shabbos, which women are. As we said, the women of Chayim no mitzvahs loisaseh. The hani noshi chayil the isnu b'shmira, isnu b'skira. So they have a din of kiddush as well. Zachar b'shama. Okay. Omer Avinu Rava noshim b'Berachos Hamazon deraisa derabanan. Noshim b'Berachos Hamazon is deraisa derabanan. But my nafkamina, what would nafkamina be? Lafuki rabim yidei chabasim. Could be mighty people. Iyamit daraisa, asi daraisa, umafi daraisa. However, iyamit rabbanon have a shein mechuyev b'dava, which calls shein mechuyev b'dava. Ein mighty as rabim yidei chabasim. My, what's the din? Tashma. Be'emes amru ben mevarich la'aviv. The Evid Mevarach Rabbi, the Yishim Berachos Labayla. Really, you could do it. Avalam Chachamim Havay Ma'ara Me'or Klalo Shekam LaAdam Sheishtay Abanam Mevarachim Lai. That he's such an Amoretz that he needs his wife and children to might see him. Iyam B'Shnei Deraisa Asi Deraisa Mafi Deraisa, and you'll just have the Ma'ara that this person is such an Amoretz. Aliyam Derabanan Asi Derabanan Mafi Deraisa. How could he might see Yechi of Deraisa? It must be Derabanan. If a woman's only Mechi of Derabanan, Bechas Amazain. How can we might see a man? Ella must be the what they're chayiv deraisa. Says more will taimech cotton bar chiyubahu. You said a cotton can be might see. Is it possible that what that it's speaking deraisa? Cotton's not bar chiyubah. So how can cotton be might see? Allah hach ma'iskin and shachal shiur derabanan. They ate the shir derabanan. They ate too little. Yasir derabanan umafke derabanan. Says Rashi shir derabanan. Keep going. Kisayis derameya. Kibeitz Rabbi Yehuda. The deraisa the chaldos levato berachta kasib. You have to eat the amount of shear that would go ahead and satiate you. If you don't, that's only the Rabbanon. There's two different benchings. There's a benching where you were surveya, which is the rice that I'm benching. There's the benching the Rabbanon where you just ate and you were not what surveya, you weren't satiated. So you weren't placed the shiloh where the women are chayiv the rice or the Rabbanon. Let's see places here. Nashim and Berachos Amazon the rice or the Rabbanon. Pirish B'Kuntrus Rashi explains. The Salka Daitach, the Lay Mechayim in the Raisa, Mishum Dichsiv, Aloretz HaToiva, Noshim Lay not Luchelik Baretz, says Aloretz HaToiva, and women did not get a chelik in the land. So you would have thought that that woman on part of prevention. The Noshim Lay not Luchelik Baretz, the Mashin not Lu B'nai Slavkod, Ayales from B'nai Slavkod, Chelik Aviyim not Lu. They didn't get their own chelik, they get the chelik of their father. The Tamer says places, according to that what, if you're going to tell me that benching is contingent upon ownership of land, then Kahanim Levim Nami Tiboy, you should have to ask a Shaila that what? That's the Rabbanon the rice of a Kahanim Levim, because after all, they didn't get land either. Shariloi not Luchelik Baritz. Then Cain, Lo Yotzi Acherim, Dechabasim, Berachos Amazon. Therefore, Kain would not be able to might see anyone else. And in fact, Viki Dashloi, the first person, one of the manifestations of the mitzvah of Kidashloi, the Kain, is to give him benching. So a bomb cash in the places. If you're telling me that benching is contingent upon ownership of land, Kahanim don't own land. How is it possible to think that a Kain can be might see Yochi of Daraisa, the land? Says Gemara anyway, Al Yeshlam the time of Mishum the Siv, Al Berisk V'Shechas Atu B'Serena. We say benching on the bris that we want to be made in our bodies. The alteroso shemaratanu and women, the notion lesnu leibe bris for leibe Torah. Neither one. So you would think that women are potter, maybe deraisa. But aminu lekaman mishalei amar bris v'Torah v'chas amazon leyatzidech basay. Ba'ashta kami boile. Here's the shaila according to Taisus. Kim leimatzu l'meima bris v'Torah. Since women can't say those two things, like havi elam d'arbanan, I don't know kim leishayich bu'mea leishayich bu'hu not shayich them havi shafa deraisa. There's a difference between a tour that comes that I could do it, and I'm part of doing it. Mashenkin, it seems that bris certainly they can't do, and even Torah is considered they can't do. Speaking about men, that shaykh like the bris and Torah. Okay, anyway, that would be the shaila according to Taisus. Let's continue. Let's finish the Gemara. Darsha Baviya's Zimri Lamish made Ravami. Avira sometimes would say in the name of Ravami. And sometimes he was saying the name of Ravasi. Omru Malchi Asharas Nei Kodesh Baruch Hu Banish Leilam. Kosa B'Sei Rascha Ashal Leisa upon him that you shouldn't show favoritism. Leikach Shleichad, or you shouldn't show favoritism in Dayan, nor should you take bribery. But you constantly go ahead and show favoritism to Yisrael. Dichsiv Yisa Shampanav Elecha. So I'm lehem. If you yes upon Yisrael, should I go ahead and show favoritism to Kal Yisrael? Shekasati lehem b'Torah v'yachalta v'sabatu v'rachas Shem Alekecha. They medagdim them al atzman, they medagdim them on themselves, al kezayas al kebeitza, to bench me even without eating the shir svia, even without. In other words, the chiyuv to bench is only shir svia, and then makbid even when they don't eat the shir svia, the makbid to thank me. So how can they show favoritism to me? How can I not show favoritism to them? Have a good day.